Okay, I'm going to try this one last time. I hate recording these things. This is something new. Bear with me. I'm terrible at video format. I will get better. We're going to start with our sun in the view of 111 angstroms. You're going to notice we have this beautiful northern coronal hole stream that is responsible for these really fast solar winds. And this is something that we can predict with certainty is going to hit us. Now, you will see, and I'm going to back this up real quick. Right here, we had this beautiful filament lift off. And it's big, and it's wide, and it's wonderful, and it's coming just behind us and just below us. But looking at it in cactus, you can see here it's only going just a little over a quarter, maybe about a third of the way around is a solid, bright ejection. But if you look right here, all the way around the disk, they're calling this a full halo because there's actually looping light solar wind coming all the way around. That was actually so wide and so big that it is going to be a wide ejection. And we will get a graze from it, even though it was slightly behind us and below us. So we have had plenty of sunspots in the C-class range. We're going to come over here. I'm going to skate up here, and I do a lot of my predicting using Space Weather Live. And anybody can go on Space Weather Live and look at their tools. We're looking at their view of the sun. Over here is 3089. This is our very complex sunspot. We have 3094 that's rotating in. Here is 3093 and 3092 that are at this one was at the bottom of that coronal hole that just lifted off. Now, looking at 3089, this is a beta, gamma, delta coronal hole. What does that mean? This means you can see here we have all these little black dots. These are called umbra. These umbra are opposite umbra. So one of them's positive, one of them's negative, one of them's positive, and one of them's negative, and they're all wrapped in these with very little margin to spare between them. And this means these are the kind that produce these really big, long, looping filaments off the face of the sun that produce a lot of flaring. Because when those opposite polarities happen is when you get those explosions. And that requires the tightly wrapped opposite polarities. So this is still in the range it's producing quite regularly. Now, if you think back over the last 2 cycles that we've had a lot of big sunspots like this month, as they came in on the limb, on the incoming limb, they were really quiet. There wasn't much there. But as they got to center-facing disk, they woke up. And all of a sudden, they started developing into these really complex monsters. And they started, it's like somebody reached in and turned up the heat and they started boiling. This is important because 3092, little chance of developing there. It's really down in size. It's not really growing. 3093 is growing. It's up in size by 10. The one I'm keeping eyes on is 3094. It's down in sunspot size, but it's far enough around to the incoming limb that I think it has a lot of chance to develop. And if it follows a pattern that the other sunspots regions has, this one we need to keep our eye on. Because it has those areas that I'm seeing that are possibilities where you've got the negative and the positive right close together that can start developing. And as it connects magnetically with Earth, as she comes into that center disk, she could connect magnetically and take off just like these other spots have. So I'm hoping this is what happens. Now I'm going to remind you behind this, we've got that big region that left that was here on the 17th. That will be coming back around right about the 14th. So we're not out of the woods. Okay, coming in. This is a view of NASA. They're predicting, right here is Earth. We're looking down on our northern pole. They're predicting a solid glaze. And then these sunspots that are coming in are going to be rotating that energy back around to us. And then they're predicting here are those sunspots behind that are coming back at us. So they're predicting we're going to see this coming spiraling back at us here in the future. And this is looking at plasma. And this is NOAA's prediction. Plasma is the top. Winds are the bottom. And they're predicting a much stronger filament wind connection than we are a plasma monster boost. So I'm saying we've got a good strong section here that we're going to stay possibly in the KP3 range right along for the next few weeks, which means in, that Harrison, Grayling, Traverse City, Alpena North Range, that 45th parallel north, you're going to be able to see auroras as long as it's clearing at a KP4 or 3 or 4 with your camera. With your camera. I want to point out this page, and I want to talk about some of the discrepancies that happened with the last couple storms, because I know some people were really frustrated because their apps weren't reading true. And if you've done this a long time, they got a 50-50 shot. And there's a reason for this. Part of it is the satellites they use to make their predictions. You're only as good as the satellite you're using. And those satellites are only as good as the weather or the scientists doing the data compiling and putting the numbers together for the prediction. So there's lots of room for error there. Expect that. There's going to be lots of nights you're expecting a 4. It might not make it. But there's going to be nights that you're not expecting anything, that you've had a pop that they didn't maybe think it would be much, that it's going to be more. Going on to the NOAA space weather. If you go all the way to the bottom, NOAA has all these different tools on their page that you can use. And right at the bottom, there's watches, warnings, notifications, timeline. This is the Discovery satellite. Discovery sits an hour ahead of us. Discovery can tell us what's going to hit us in an hour. That is the one you want to pay attention to because it's going to be the most accurate reading of what's coming at you. I know a lot of people gave up a couple weeks ago, went in because it was a KP2, and there was a few of us old timers that went, no, not one we're seeing. We stayed out, and we were rewarded by getting a KP5 storm when everybody else gave up. You just got to learn to understand what you're seeing and get a feel for what you see. And sometimes you just develop a relationship between what you see and your experiences that tell you that's going to hit and that's not going to hit, and this is what we're going to hit and this is what we're not going to get. And it takes experience, and it takes getting out there every single time and seeing what's there and photographing what's there to build that kind of experience to know what's what. So it takes practice. All right, let's look at surface weather. It's going to be really rough. I'm not going to lie to anybody. If you're north of Traverse City and north of Alpena, you've got a shot. East Coast, you're going to be really rough. It's just going to be cloudy, nasty. Maybe Maine, maybe northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern New York might get something if they can get around the cloud bank to the north of them. UP is going to be wonderful. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Dakotas, some parts of Canada are going to be pretty good, but here's the but. Looking at the NOAA hazard mapping system for fire and smoke, looking at our hazards for smoke plumes, we have a slight smoke plume all the way into mid to eastern Canada. You're really going to be socked in here, Canada, with this, everything being sucked up because of the jet stream, because you've got Canadian wildfires going on. So it's going to kind of suck right up out of California, Oregon, Wisconsin, Idaho, all those fires is going to suck right up in there, and then they're going to kind of drop back down, but it's going to kind of all congregate there in Canada. Fortunately, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Michigan, you're going to get a break, but we have fires going down in southern United States that are going to kind of get lower Michigan, and some of the top of the eastern states and lower Canada there with a slight smoke plume. This does not mean you won't see auroras through a smoke plume, but it's going to cause your pillars to look murky. It's kind of like putting a sheet of paper between the light, if you've ever shot with a studio light, you've got your light bulb and you put your studio filter on your light and it kind of diffuses your light. That's what happens with ash and smoke. We get the same thing when we have really high humidity. The water moisture particles bend the light, and so it spreads the light and it diffuses what we see. So that is exactly what's going to happen if you're under one of these smoke plumes. So I think you should pretty well have a good idea what's going on. I would say that you've got a good chance at seeing northern lights if you're in one of those areas through tonight and tomorrow. Not going to be much of a difference in cloud cover or smoke between the two nights. Little better tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we are going to have the better and more probable chance at the KP2 storms. And I know what I was going to do. We were going to look at timeline. Hang on, let me go in here and pull the timeline. And a lot of you that try and bookmark your space enthusiast page, it's been a little off and not wanting to bookmark very easily. We are looking at tonight. It's going to be kind of a dead stop until we get to probably, remember, Eastern time, you're backing things up 4 hours. So about 11 o'clock tonight, it's going to pick up Eastern time and go into the early morning hours. And then it will pick up mid-evening, early morning, or mid-afternoon, late afternoon tomorrow, and run through the early morning hours tomorrow too. So we've got a good shot here. Everybody get out and enjoy, have fun. I look forward to seeing what you've got. And if you get good stuff, make sure you send them to me and send them to group. And I will do, make sure you put your names on them. Put a little watermark with your name on them and where you're from. And I will start doing little slideshows of people's photos and the different places they're from and promote your work on our channel. All right. Have fun, everybody. Talk to you later.